Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of Carry On with Carrie podcast. Today, I have Troy Mitchell with us, and he is a pretty fascinating guy. I've just recently got to know him a little bit more, and he's going to talk to us about lots of interesting things and open our minds up to so many possibilities. He had a near-death experience initially, which brought on your initial awakening, I suppose. And he would, I guess you would describe yourself as a guide. Can you expand on that a little bit? And welcome.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of myself as a guide just because, ultimately that's what I help people do is follow a path within themselves to uncover any blocks and release any negative energy that they might need to release so they can open up and truly live the life that they're meant to live and step into their power. And so I kind of guide people into themselves, really into their power. So I use different techniques and tools, and so I am a certified hypnotist, but I really like to use progressive relaxation. It's like guided meditation, really, just to help people guide them to within themselves and awaken up parts that need to awaken and remove things that might be a block. And
so when you say progressive meditation, you said? Can you explain that a little bit more?
It's just like a guided meditation. So it's just a progressive relaxation where we do some deepening techniques, just like using, counting back from 10 to 1 and using visualization. So you're traveling down a staircase, into a garden space. And, this is your inner place of peace and well-being, and the place where you tap into your greatest sense of power and strength. And, you take them into the garden, and then you take them even deeper to the center of their garden. And so it's just a progressive meditation, really. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And so, as I mentioned at the beginning, I don't know if you want to kind of start off with that, but I found it a fascinating story. I was lucky enough to hear it the other night at your meditation, and about your near-death experience as a young man.
Yeah, it started when I would have every single year, once a year, I started having fever comas or really high fevers that would put me into almost like a coma state. And sometimes it'd last for days, sometimes weeks. I was hospitalized numerous times. And during one experience, I had a full-on travel through a wormhole kind of a thing. And so I was on a bed by myself, with a sheet and a fan and blowing ice on me, and the doctors are trying to regulate my temperature, and I would hear them talk to my mom once in a while, and they would say, there's a good chance he's not going to live, and if he does live, the brain can't withstand temperatures this high for this long. He'll probably have brain damage, and my sister might argue that still is happening, but it's supposed to bug me, but then I would just wake up one day and I'd be fine, but I'd have these little journeys while I was in these high fever states, and the visuals and the visions would be very real. It was vivid, more vivid than even being awake, really, in the conscious world. And my first experience, that was really kind of the awakening and the welcoming. It felt like to really source energy, and I call it source energy just because it is the depth of the most subtle, most powerful energy in the universe. And it is kind of like where everything forms from, everything finds expression from the source energy. And so I was just into this vision of floating on water, and there was birch trees around, but they were very, there's a lot of distance between them, like 20 feet apart, and there's leaves on the water. And then I noticed ahead of me there was a whirlpool, and then I just got pulled into the whirlpool, and just like in a movie, you're going through a wormhole, and then suddenly I just came to this opening, and it was still like this water vapor that was there, and it just slowly formed into a face, and the face would be like the face of what I understood as God as a child, what I was led to believe as God, but it was also a cartoon face. And it gave me the message that, I'm coming to you in the form of what you think God would be based on your impressions from the experience of, Sunday school or whatever. And, but also in the cartoon form, because you're a child and you like cartoons, and this will help you feel safe.
Right.
Plus that I'm not real. This isn't real.
Okay.
And yet it was. But it was source energy that just formed that way to help me understand more of what energy really is and what source energy is. And that's where my awakening started. That's where it was like going to school. It was like I was learning from source.
Right.
What life was like, how I create my results, what is the energy that's between the mental, the emotional, like what is the, what is it really that helps energy grow and gather and form and on and on. And it was really about our emotional energy and our thoughts and our actions. So there's like a holy trinity there that's really important to know and understand, and to be able to take ownership over and use your willpower and be able to, guide your own thoughts.
And you had mentioned something about a personal psychology.
Yeah,
Would that lead into that? Because you had
it's a part of it. I mean, there's a couple reasons why. So I took a psychology course at 17 because I wanted to figure me out even more. And not only that, I was trying to study a lot of things so I can learn how to articulate to other people what it is that I knew by experience.
Right.
Because some people were caught up in ideologies and and concepts and things like that they'd learned, whether it was religion or whether it, whatever it might be. But they didn't understand how to embody this energy. They didn't know how to use it. And I've seen it obviously in my parents and family and friends, and it's hard to, just go, oh, you need to be happier. It's really easy to say.
Very easy to say. Yeah.
But I wanted to learn how to articulate better, what was happening within others. But I really need to understand, first of all, how it was happening within myself. So I'm like, I'm going to take this personal psychology course.
Yeah.
And but it was really cool because we had an exchange teacher from Australia that had more of an Eastern-based philosophy, and so she really opened up our minds. And we did some fun things in that classroom, like bringing Ouija boards, and she really tested the limits of the school system, first of all.
Yeah, no kidding.
And but all of us students as well.
Yeah.
And including bringing in a world-renowned hypnotherapist that, I was a typical 17-year-old kid sitting at the back of the classrooms with my arms crossed.
Yeah.
Saying, what are you going to do? Make me act like a chicken? Or, it was the worst the first day. But a friend of mine that sat beside me, we were good friends and we trusted each other, and, we always had each other's back, and we agreed to do that throughout this class. And the world-renowned hypnotherapist put him under.
Wow.
And he slumped over beside me, and I was fascinated that even happened. And next thing you know, he told my friend, on the count of 3, your right shoe's gonna be on fire. And he sits up and he kicks his shoe off and he's rubbing his foot. And I'm asking him, like, what are you doing? He's like, my shoe's on fire. And I'm like, but it's not. It's really not. And so I was fascinated at that. So I was sitting at the front of the class the next day with my arms wide open going, if that was real, I want to know everything. I want to know it all. And they really saw that I was pretty passionate about that.
Yeah.
And so from there, I just learned like so much. I just delved right into everything I possibly could. And it was amazing to learn that we often use language in a very poor way in our culture. We're so focused on what's not working rather than realizing that I choose my emotions.
Right.
I do. And yes, things can happen. Life can happen. And if something happens in the moment, so even if somebody throws an insult at me, it can hurt my feelings in the moment. So I can feel upset, and my nervous system will respond. But if I sit with that until everything subsides and releases and relaxes, and then just let it go, then I'll be fine. But people don't often do that. They dwell on that emotion, even though that was a one-time happening. It's now gone. But if my mind brings it up again, I'm going to trigger the same emotion.
Right.
And if I do that again, I'm triggering the same emotion. When you take one emotion and you trigger it over and over again, it creates a pattern. That pattern is known now as a feeling.
Right.
So it moves from a single emotion to a feeling, which is like you're holding on to it, which is a frequency. Because every emotion, which can be described by one word, right? So it's almost like an ingredient too, that you're like, putting forth, and it's your choice of what you're going to hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever emotion you're holding on to most frequently is your frequency.
Right.
And your nervous system responds to that, and it doesn't have any opinions about it. It doesn't care, good, bad, or different. It just responds to your feeling, your frequency, by increasing it. And so on a biological level, I learned that, your nervous system basically can deplete your serotonin, which is your happy neurochemical, and deplete
Mm-hmm.
your dopamine, which is your energy, and drive you further into a lethargic state of depression.
Right.
Because it's doing what it thinks you want. Because it's your choice to focus on what's making you sad.
Okay.
And so it thinks it's what you want, so it's like, I'm going to help you, right? Ask and thou shalt receive.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment you choose to focus on and use the words of happiness and joy and love,
right,
and anything that helps uplift you, then suddenly that's the frequency you're giving off.
Mm-hmm.
That's what your nervous system is going to respond to, by then helping you naturally build and store more serotonin, and help store and build more oxytocin, more
Mm-hmm.
Dopamine, and next you know, you feel energized again and full of life. And,
right.
but this is something you can control, because in this moment, it's the only thing that exists.
Mm-hmm.
Your future doesn't exist. Don't dwell on something that hasn't happened yet. Your past no longer exists. Don't dwell on something that has happened.
Right.
In this moment, you can choose to feel anything you want.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can hold that.
Is it somewhat of a, I know you brought up the reptilian brain, I believe, and so it's something that it becomes almost like a reflex, so to speak, with your brain. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but
there's a big part of your ego mind, and
Yeah.
there's different parts of your mind that can trigger different things and
Mhm.
be triggered by different things. Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, it's okay to
get some
angry,
kind of a
it's okay
positive
to be
emotion
sad,
for that.
It's okay to be, all
Yeah.
of those things are fine, right? Things will happen that'll make you upset,
right,
but it's your choice to dwell on it.
right,
Pain is inevitable.
mm-hmm.
Suffering is a choice.
right,
Yeah.
yes,
And a lot of people, for some reason, choose to suffer.
because
They choose
because
to
you
dwell
don't
on
know
things.
anything better.
Right. We're just,
Right?
again, we're in a culture that, focuses way too much on what's not working and what's wrong. And, I need to fix something, and there's a part of the ego mind that wants to splash about and create, disharmony and energy anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wants you to react, right?
Right.
And that's why a yogi, one of the first steps of a yogi is to sit still and accept all of the karma that's going to hit them, because that's all splashing about from the past.
Yeah.
That's still moving into an experience of today, but no longer react to it.
Right.
Right? I know a wave's going to hit me.
Mm-hmm.
Let it. Accept everything.
Yeah.
That's really the true etymology of the word acceptance, is to accept everything that comes at you, because that you really can't control until you start to realize that by not splashing about and reacting to things,
Mhm.
I can sit in neutrality, I can calm the waters within my being, then I can move into a more proactive state, and then suddenly the waves of karma start to be a very beautiful thing. More
Right.
like a warm blanket that's being put over you, as opposed to a big wave that's smacking you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can control those waves, but you can't control the waves that you don't like by reacting to them. It's like a wave's going to hit you.
Mhm.
If you slap at the wave to try to stop it, it just creates more waves.
Yes. Okay.
Which then again you're going to have to react to in the future again, or learn to not react.
Mm-hmm.
It's the reason why in The Matrix, the movie, when Neo wakes up,
Yeah.
he's told that he's loved, he gets a kiss, he wakes up, and the first thing he says is no. Right?
Right.
The Matrix is trying to shoot bullets at him. He says no, the bullets stop, because he's no longer going to react. That is a huge part of a first step of a yogi. No more reactions to my past karma. I accept all that is.
Mm-hmm.
I sit in this place of neutrality until wisdom shows up. And with that peace comes a lot of friends, like
Yeah.
joy and bliss and all these beautiful things that just naturally are there, because it's the most natural part of you. You don't have to create it. You just start to recognize it's always there.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful part of how people guide them into their powers, because you cannot create peace. You can only be revealed to you.
Right.
Yeah. And you don't need a reason to be happy.
Yes, I liked that when you said that the other
Yeah.
night. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, happiness is just, it's your most natural state when you're in a place of peace,
Mhm.
right? Peace brings friends, and happiness is one of those. You don't need a reason to be happy. You can be happy for no reason whatsoever, but it takes something to disturb happiness,
Right.
right? right? It takes nothing to have peace. Peace is the most natural state. When all the dust settles, peace is there waiting for you.
Right.
So we stop acting and reacting and creating waves, and we just let ourselves sit in peace.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that we recognize that's always been there. And we just attune back to it. And then we sit in that peace and marinate in that peace, and peace brings friends.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of bubbles up from that beautiful, subtle source energy and this joy and this happiness. And it just kind of, becomes very overwhelming for people that become enlightened for the first time, and just like, tears are flowing.
Yes.
There's this bliss state that happens.
Yeah.
Bliss body ignites, and yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's
Yeah, and when you described that the other night, it really kind of, a light bulb went off for me as far as like, oh yeah, like you don't need a reason to be happy. It sounds so obvious, but again, it's not if you haven't trained your brain to think that way, or to, like, as you said too before, the waves, to me, that you explained that you've studied a lot too, like because of your curiosity and you wanted to know more, and the credibility behind what you
I want
experienced.
to help other people understand too, even their own concepts, right?
Right.
There's a lot of people that spout off different concepts and ideologies and different religions,
Mm-hmm.
and so I studied as much as I could so that I can help other people, I could articulate to them to help them understand the reality of the experience of the concepts that they're talking about.
Right.
And yeah, that's a powerful transition to embody what it is that you're saying, rather
Mm-hmm.
than just saying it in your head, because your head is, it's your mind, but it is a programmable tool.
Right.
And if you're not programming it from within, it's being programmed from the external. Because your mind isn't really, it'll believe everything as gospel
Mm-hmm.
at first.
Yeah.
It takes your discernment to think about it, process it, and say yes or no, this is true or false or whatever. But at first, like, your brain just wants to agree. If somebody says, oh, the sky's blue, you're like, okay, that's locked in. That's a piece of data now, and that's in there. And you're going to believe it until somebody convinces you otherwise.
Right.
But that happens in so many aspects of our life that we're unconscious of, because we're not really taking ownership of our mind. And once you take ownership of your mind, you start to take ownership of your emotions. You take ownership of your emotions, you start to realize your emotions actually guide your mind. It's this really weird flip of concept.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of people that want to argue with that. I just laugh, because I'm like, no. You know that when you're feeling sad, you tap into sad memories easier.
Yes.
If you're thinking about your future, you're painting a picture of a sad future. So yes, your thoughts can help guide your emotions, but your thoughts are very much in a state dependency based on your emotions.
Okay.
So when you're feeling happy, and you'll start tapping into happy memories, and if you're painting a picture of the future, it's a happy picture of the future.
Mm-hmm.
And we experience this all the time when we're talking to our friends. You get that tuned in conversation, and you don't have any of the memories of any vacations you have on in your mind at that moment. But all of a sudden your friend starts talking about a vacation they went on, and all of a sudden all the cool vacations that might relate to that flood your mind.
Right. Yes.
There is a state dependency to our emotions.
Okay.
Yeah, so your mind will follow.
So now, I know you don't like to maybe go on about the hypnotherapy part of things, but I kind of just clicked with me too. You said the things that your external, the things you hear externally stick with you, and when you're a child between the ages of 1 to 7, that's when everything's kind of put there, and the beliefs and whatever. So is that something that it just always stays with you, or you find bubbles to the surface eventually for everybody, that maybe that was the point of contention, why you became who you were?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of subjective situations that can happen, but absolutely, yeah. They say that your character and personality are kind of created by the ages 7 or 8, and that's, there's some truth to that, but ultimately it's your mind, it's your body, it's your emotions, and you have full control over them.
Right.
So yes, we're influenced very heavily when we're young. Obviously, we are dependents.
Right.
But there is a transference of intellect, I guess is what I would say, when you really take ownership of all of that. And there's a lot of cultures that have a coming of age, where they give you your, like, they pass the torch to you and say, hey, this is your life now. And
Right.
You take responsibility for your thoughts, feelings, and actions. Much for your life, but realize that your thoughts, feelings, and actions also affect the lives of others.
Right.
There's a responsibility there that's really important, and we don't have that in our culture. Our coming of age ceremony is, going to the bar, getting drunk, or worse, going to strip clubs, or whatever that might be. It's not healthy, and so we don't really have that in our culture, unfortunately.
Right.
Unless you're indigenous. Indigenous do have a lot of ceremonies around, the coming of age and taking ownership, taking responsibility, and owning it. But it doesn't have to be super complicated. The mind likes to complicate things, but it really is simple, and it's just wherever you put your attention and your focus and what emotion is behind that is really how you're going to create and manifest more in your life. Your IQ and your EQ, so your intellect, your mind, and your emotional energy, where they intersect, almost like a longitude and a latitude, is what vibrates the particles in that space to then gather energy and into matter or into form or into experience. And so it's really important to know how you're feeling and hold on to the emotion that you truly want, and then use your mind to be like the targeting system. Where am I going to put this energy?
Right.
And it's happening all the time unconsciously for people if they're not paying attention and they're not aware and they're not observing. But the moment you start really becoming aware of that, the first thing that might happen is like, oh my goodness, I'm a little bit freaked out. I don't know if I can control my emotions all the time. I don't know if I can control my thoughts all the time. And so that's why meditation is such a gift. And when people struggle doing meditation, especially in our culture, it's funny because it's such a weird duality where people are like, oh, I can't sit still, I can't whatever. And I'm like, it's literally the least amount of energy that you can do on anything, like just sitting still in silence.
Because we're overcomplicating it.
Your mind does not want you to find your awakening, because it will lose control. And the ego part of your mind, right? So the ego part of your mind, it wants to control you. It wants you to react. It wants you to flinch. So it's going to throw thoughts in your head like, oh, what about dinner tomorrow? I have to, I got to pick this up from the cleaners. I got to, it's always like, what's next?
Yeah.
But in your soul and your spirit, there's no such thing as next.
Right.
The only thing that exists is this moment.
Right now.
And when you can sit in the truth of that, really amazing things happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And would you say that all started to come, after your near-death experience? Was it something that kind of just felt clear to you right from there? Like you just had a different sense, or did it take still some time?
Well, sitting on a bed alone, with these high fevers, but I was still conscious for so much of it, even though I might have looked like I was, in a comatose state or something. I was very conscious, and so that's really I was forced into meditation.
Right.
Is really what it was. I was forced to sit still in silence.
Yeah.
And so I had my awakening. So I don't recommend that to everybody else.
No.
But I highly recommend sitting still in silence.
Yeah.
But I'm aware. There's a lot of things that, once your mind is kind of built up, all of this energy, it's hard to slow it down. But then again, yet it's not, because you're literally doing nothing. And just allow yourself to sit there, and but you need to realize that you're connecting to your true self, and your true self is a spaciousness within you that is always been there, will always be there. It is the eternal part of you, and so you just have to recognize and take inventory of all the things that are changing, and realize that you are observing those changes. So that cannot be you. Anything that you can observe cannot be you.
Right.
Yeah, you can't even observe your true self.
Right.
It's impossible.
Yes, and
really
I find that
frustrating
fascinating. It is. It can be very much so.
That's part of the ego death. It freaks out because it thinks it's going to die, and yet it's not true. It's just our bodies will shed all of the atoms that it's collected over time from eating food, but they'll drop off, and the true self is there.
So can I ask if you have, I think you sort of touched on it, and I might have just misunderstood it, but what is your belief system behind what happens to us when we're not here anymore? Do you
Well,
have
I
a
don't have a belief system
not
because
okay?
I have a knowing.
Okay, so
by
you know.
experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I think people have a tough time with that because
Yeah.
they get annoyed with me speaking truth when they are tied to a concept or an ideology
Yeah.
based on religion or whatever, and it's fine if people want to believe whatever they want to believe. But
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, so what I learned from Source Energy is everything is just an expression from there, and you can build up that energy into having it as like a deity. So, and India knew this, like, so pre-colonialism, like there's 30 million people in India, and they had 30 million gods, because they knew that you can select anything you want.
Okay.
And depending on the kind of energy you want, you can use a particular type of, and that's why there's an elephant god, and there's a snake god, and a cow god, and like all these different gods, because that encapsulated a particular type of energy,
Right.
characteristic, right? Elephants are strong, wise, and whatever. So I'm going to focus on an elephant god, and I'm going to be able to attune to, and allow in that strength that I need, And
Yeah.
sometimes I need to be a bit more of a warrior, sometimes I need to be a bit more softer, sometimes I need more compassion, sometimes I need more intuition. So you can use an external idea of something
Yeah.
to help you attune to that energy so that you embody that energy. And the more people you get to believe in that one thing, you can really build up that energy. It's like consecration, right? So,
Yeah.
you can consecrate something. So if you get enough people to believe that, I could turn this rock into, a god or a demigod, you can actually charge that rock with enough people to really truly believe in it. So there's a power in our energy that we have.
Right.
But within every atom of our being is this infinite amount of energy. Like even in every 2-foot squared space around you, in the air around you, there's enough energy there to boil all the waters in the entire world. Like there's that much power and that much energy.
Right.
We're breathing that in all the time. And this is what I try to get people to really connect to and get deeper into. And that's the reason why spirit and breath are synonymous. And that's why to take a deep breath, in Spanish they say espirito, and the word spirit is in the word respirator and respiratory. And
Oh, right. Yeah.
so your connection to breath is directly a connection to spirit.
So, how would you describe, okay, you brought up the other night about breath, and I would love, like, that again was also something that was very, I was left with kind of like a light bulb moment where
Just within the breathing process.
the breathing process and what that power alone, because that is your right.
It's a big part of your life force that is there, and it's how, again, it's how we really connect to spirit. So, and there's a lot of teachings out there about how to box breathe, or how to count in for a breath of 4 and hold for a breath of 4, and to try to get people to have a certain experience. And there's a lot of truth to these things, but before people get into doing all that stuff, again, some of that's just a little bit like splashing on the surface of the ocean. Like, I want to get people to go into the depths of the ocean and to the depths of your spirit. And the way to get there is to find your own natural balance and rhythm in your breathing. And it's something you can't even think about. You have to really go into it. And so for everybody, because we all have a different lung capacity, and that's why me breathing in for a count of 4, holding for a count of 4, and you doing it, it's going to be a different experience.
Right.
Because I have a different lung capacity than you. And the one thing with me, and most people that I teach, is they also learn to increase their lung capacity. We are oxygen-based organisms. Having more oxygen in your system is going to increase boosting your lymphatic system and cleanse your body and your mind and your being, especially when you learn to really be with the breath, because you are literally being with the spirit. You're pulling in source energy. Every breath you take, you're giving life to 1 million new cells, and every time you exhale, you're casting off 1 million cells.
Right.
People don't realize the levity of that every cell in your body is a living, breathing organism. You're
Mm-hmm.
literally creating a whole new life within you, and then also saying goodbye to
Mm-hmm.
old life. And so I get people to take, first of all, clean out the lungs, push all the air out. We sometimes have stale air that sits in our lungs, and that has a lot to do with the old, crap and negativity and core wounds we're holding on to from the past.
Right.
Exhaust all of that out, get rid of everything. And then fill your lungs to capacity, the deep breath in through your nose typically. Fill your lungs to capacity to the point where you're pushing it and you feel this great strain, like you can't fit any more air in. And then you hold it for as long as you can and feel where that spirit energy is going through your body.
Mm-hmm.
Attune to it. And then when you're ready, exhale out. Push all that air out again till you feel a great strain, like you're collapsing your lungs, and that's where that part of the brain's gonna freak out. The
Right.
reptilian part of the brain's gonna try to get you to force a deep breath in. But the more you do this, the better you're gonna get at it. Like anything in life, you're just gonna get better at doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to exhaust all that air out, and then really feel that space there. So sit in it, even though you've exhausted all the air out. You're gonna be fighting with yourself to not take a deep breath in. Eventually you will, because you'll take a deep breath in. Even if you were to pass out,
Right.
you're right, life force energy will push air into you anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So with or without your willful participation, life is happening.
Right.
And but you can just sit in that and tune to it. And so then when you take a deep breath in again, you realize you don't need to take it as big of a breath, and then when you exhale, it doesn't need to go out as far. And it's nothing you can even think about it. You just feel it. You feel the sensation of warmth and relaxation, and you just find this natural rhythm and balance.
Right.
It just happens naturally, and you just sink into this deeper state of relaxation. Then your mind's more clear because your thoughts slow down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can talk about what that happens, on a brainwave frequency side, because your mind, body, spirit are interconnected.
Right.
The more you relax and slow down your breathing, the more you're going to relax and slow down your mind. So instead of your mind trying to focus on 20 things at once, creating possible chaos and anxiety and things like that going on, now your mind has the ability to focus on one thing at a time.
Right.
So what is that one thing? What should it be? And that's where the mind can start going off on another journey, or you can just go, wait a minute, the only thing my mind needs to do is accept the fact that I am at peace right now. What a gift.
Yes.
What a feeling. And I can sit here. And if I can hold that in this moment and feel this happy and this joyful in this moment, why would any other moment be any different? Because this is the only thing that exists.
Right.
Is this moment. And
Mm-hmm.
it's everlasting. Right?
Yeah.
Now thoughts will try to get in there because the mind doesn't like you to.
Right. Yeah.
It wants you
Again,
to
your
splash
ego.
about. And
Yes.
it wants you to, and this is part of the universe's program, because if we didn't
And then-
have that duality, if we didn't have the splashing around,
Mm-hmm.
if everything was in perfect harmony and everything was the same, and we all wore the same clothes, and we all drove the same cars, nothing would evolve.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
the universe wants to evolve. So
Mhm.
the universe, through adversity, created diversity. And so that is a built-in program. So we are constantly being kind of, triggered to create activity.
Right.
Activity will create evolution.
Mm-hmm.
We will evolve. However, the gift I was given was that I don't have to react. I don't have to live in suffering. I don't have to do all of those things. I can literally sit in peace and allow that energy just to marinate until the point where natural bliss shows up. And it does.
Right.
I don't force it. I don't have to create it. I just am gifted it, and then I become a conduit, and the gift I can give to others. So I don't create all this love, and that's really what love is. Love is that source energy
Right.
that we're breathing. That's why you hear things like love is in the air and love is eternal. Well, we're made of the 5 elements. One of the elements they call ether. They call it space, ether, akash.
Mm-hmm.
But ether, if you look at the etymology of the word ether, another word is eternal. So love is eternal.
Right.
Love is in the air. Love is the 5th element.
Okay.
Yeah. So 72% water, 12% earth, 4% fire, 6% air, and the rest is what they say is ether or space. But it really is love.
Wow.
And when you sit in that, yes, magic happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I've said this earlier, my mom always said, in order to heal, you need to love yourself first. And I mention my mom lots because my mom and dad are, I think, very wise. They're whiz people. They're wise people. Anyways, and that's something for me, as we talked about, like, and I know you, I don't speak as eloquently as you, and I've said this, but you meet, like, for me, I've really noticed you start, like you said, you start to meet people that are positive, and you attract positivity, and you attract good experiences. And it doesn't mean, though, that you're going to stay in that at all times, that there are the ebbs and the flows. And like you said the other day about sadness, like, you sit in your sadness and that's okay. But, can you explain that? It's not that you're holding on to it. It's,
well, yeah. So, I mean, you hear from a lot of people, like, it's, you'll hear from people, it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be this, it's natural, it's human. And,
right.
And 100% it is. The problem is people will allow those emotions to find expression.
Okay.
And that's where they get into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that can be a human reaction. However, it is the thing that is creating chaos in your life, right? Because
right.
if you're mad or angry and you're allowing that to find expression, you're going to be destructive,
mm-hmm.
right? Like,
right.
when I'm in a happy place, whatever I touch is getting benefits.
Right.
I've never hurt anybody when I've been in a state of joy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unless they're jealous of me being in a state of joy.
Right.
But always welcome to join me. So it's just what you allow to find expression. So yeah, it's natural to feel that you're going to get upset, you're going to get sad, you're going to get frustrated, you're going to be angry, and that's fine. Sit with it, because it's yours. It's only yours to sit with, right? And it's a hard thing for people to hear too, because anytime you feel like you need to share that emotion with somebody else is the first step into manipulation.
Oh, okay.
Right? I need to share this with somebody because somebody needs to do something about it. Somebody else needs to heal me. Somebody else needs to fix me. Somebody else needs to, whatever it is, right? People fall back in this victim position, and none of that's true. It's yours. It's only yours. You just sit with it, and wisdom will come. It will. The tears will run dry.
Yeah.
There will be this essence of letting it go, and because when you just sit with things and you don't feed it though, so. Because if you feed it, you react to it. It's like a wave hitting you that you're trying to slap that wave, and all you're doing is you're creating more waves. So you want to just sit with it and accept the fact that somewhere in the past, I attracted this somehow, some way. A wave is hitting me. I have to accept it 100%. That's the true definition of acceptance, which then leads to the true definition of forgiveness. And the true definition of forgiveness means I accept all that is, I sit with it until I can put my loving spin on it, forgive it back to the universe. Forward, give it back to the universe. Okay. So that is acceptance and forgiveness in its truth.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that you have, like, the knowledge of I know that there's a whole science behind that, but words have meaning, and they were given these,
Yeah, and meaning has been distorted in a lot of words.
It has.
And
yeah.
I can't get into conspiracy theories or whatever. Yeah. However it happened. It's just like the word sweetness, right? People think, I say sweetness. Some people out there are thinking of candy or something.
Right.
When sweetness really is, it's a human expression. That's that's the way to express from a loving space, is to be sweet and have a sense of sweetness. And but that word was distorted, and and that's happening more and more.
Have you heard the word sin? And I wish I could remember it. I'm so bad for this. I'll hear somebody quote it, and I don't even know. It's a woman I just came across, and how sin has been misconstrued and what the original meaning of sin meant. And it's actually not. I'll have to look into it. It's fascinating to me, because I'll get back to you on that. But it's a completely different. The way we've spun it, it's like sin. You've sinned. You've done something bad. You've done. You know.
I mean, because, well, if you get anybody to believe that they're bad or they're whatever, right? So all religion at one time was karmic based. So it was all about I create my results, and it was very well known that that is the truth. It's my vibrational frequency. I am the center of this universe that I know as me, and this is all I can control.
Right.
The moment I try to control somebody else, then that's also what they're calling as Luciferian, right? If you try to get somebody else to bend their will to yours, that's a Luciferian act, which a lot of people are doing.
Right.
Right? Does that mean that they have the devil in them or whatever? Like, no, that's just a concept. But the reality is the energy that's going on, the truth of what's going on is what really needs to be recognized. And so even the 10 Commandments, if you think of those as from a karmic perspective, thou shalt not lie to yourself. If you lie to yourself, clearly you're not on your right path. You're a lost soul. So don't lie to yourself, right? Thou shalt not take any other idol, symbol, or God above myself. Because if I idolize anything outside of myself, I'm easily controllable.
Oh, okay.
Right? So that's what happened in religion is people figured out that they can take God outside of you, put it up on a pedestal that they expect you to live up to, which they know that you never will, and that's how they can control you. Because now they can say, oh, you've sinned.
Right.
Oh, you've done something wrong, and you need to be punished, and all this nonsense, right? It's just a way to control people.
Right.
And but no, everybody needs to just get back to realizing the truth. I have a vibration. There's a law of vibration. There's a law of frequency. And that frequency is ultimately what emotion are you holding on to most frequently.
Right.
That is, your emotional energy is the power. That is right. And it's the passion behind it that can grow and build that fire. So you're made of 4% fire. And you build that fire within you, and that emotional passion is really a big part of it. But we can be passionate about hating something.
Right.
As much as we can be passionate about loving something. So what are we allowing to find expression? Are we allowing the passions of anger, frustration, whatever to find expression? Or are we allowing that love, joy, peace, well-being, whatever that is, to find expression?
Yeah.
It's 100% our choice. Right?
We just don't always realize that.
We don't realize. Worse than that, people will blame their expressions on other people or other circumstances.
Yeah. On outward.
Right.
Yes.
And that was one of the things as a child after my first near-death experiences, I'd seen other people and I would right away want to, tell them the way it really is, and just I would, they would not like that.
Right.
Because they don't want to take responsibility. They go, I feel this way because of that person or whatever, and they don't realize that it's their.
So it's basically the law of attraction in a lot of ways, is it, or is it?
Attraction really is based on the actual laws of the universe. So there's no law of attraction; it's the law of the universe. But the law of attraction is a consequence when you align with the law of vibration, law of frequency, law of polarity, law of correspondence. So there's actual laws of the universe, laws of cause and effect. So when you tune and allow yourself to really be aware of those, and what are those, based on what waves are you creating, right? What waves do you create? Be aware of those and own those. So I know, first of all, physically, I breathe inward, outward. That's my connection to spirit. I have the ability to touch objects, to move things. So I have this physical form that I can create waves. I have thought waves. I have emotional waves. I have sound waves. So all of these waves that I have, I need to own and really realize that these are the things that are my ability to let expression out of my deepest passions, which then the universe echoes back into my experience.
Right.
And it echoes it back based on the frequency, so the emotional frequency, and also the amplification of that frequency. Because happiness is like one kind of frequency, but it has many you can
levels
amplify.
of
Right? So there's levels of happiness, there's levels of joy, but there's happiness, which is a frequency, but there is, you can amplify it, and we have the ability to do that.
Right.
And we don't need anybody else's permission. We don't need anybody else's validation. We don't need anybody else's okay. Those are all aspects of the ego drive of the mind.
Right.
And when we just let all that go and just realize, like, I don't need any reason to share love. I don't need any reason to be in love. And ultimately you are love, right? So about loving yourself. How about recognizing that you are love? That is what you are. It's part of your being. It's nothing that you need to create. You just need to let it be revealed.
Right. And you had said something about like we all have signs. We just don't always choose to. We can let them pass by, or we can decide to
You have discernment.
see them.
And when I speak a lot and I do these things, especially anybody that does any like courses where they try to take action, take action, take action, take action, and there's a lot of that, right? There's a very strong culture of people that really want you to take action a lot. Heavy egos, which is great. They have the it's a bit of a crude statement that I always use, but I say they have the balls to take action.
Yeah.
Sadly, they lack the wisdom to know what action to take. That happens a lot out in society, especially with these courses that are like, rah rah says boom bah, hear me roar, and that roar always dies because it is. It's like there's only so long you can splash about before you get tired and exhausted. And when you finally surrender, you'll find peace, because peace has always been there, waiting for you.
Yeah.
When all the dust settles, peace is there. And the funny thing is people take these actions because they want to do something so they can eventually find peace in their lives.
Yeah.
And not realizing peace is always there.
It's been there the whole time.
It's been there the whole time. It is the most natural state of your being.
I just got chills.
And it is beautiful,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So as soon as people put down whatever tools they're using, thinking that they can fight for peace even, it's impossible. The very fact that you're picking up a gun is disturbing peace.
Right.
So people think that they're fighting for peace is the most ridiculous thing to me. I sit back and I just go, wow, how dissonant are people?
Yes.
And there's moms out there that are proud of their kids going off and fighting. It's just it's the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
But
because that's the way we've been conditioned to believe.
We're conditioned because of just old primitive ways of thinking, right?
Right.
But that's okay. Things are changing. Things are coming around.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's only so long you can splash about before you get tired. It doesn't matter how strong you think you are. Yeah, eventually it will.
That's why I don't watch the news. I don't watch the news, and I haven't for years. And then I started to again because you get interested and nosy and all that good stuff, and it just brings you to. It's not that I'm not curious, and I don't want to be aware of events and. But I also think for me, I know it makes so much sense now because I go right to that place. If I'm hearing all these bad events, if I'm hearing like all these things that are negative, my brain goes to that anxiety then in the future. Well, what are my kids going to be doing? What are my grandkids going to be doing? So yeah, I know for me that's, I don't know, it holds very true. That who you are sitting with and who you talk to, and just by changing your thought patterns around stuff.
You just letting go of letting go altogether.
Right. And there you go.
Be.
Just be. Okay.
When you sink into just being, peace is there waiting for you. You attune to it again. And again, there's people that are like, oh, well, you still have to take action at some point in time. Yes, but activity happens on its own. When you sit still and you really connect to that source energy, you realize it is a flowing energy. It's like standing in a river that's continuously flowing.
Right.
But you still remain in the same spot where the river is flowing. And you start to realize that love energy, that fifth element that's within you, that's really what it is. It's that energy, and it's eternal. It's always there, and it's continuously flowing.
Right.
And then you start to realize that, you can attune your thoughts, even just in the most mildest way, to an idea of, or a feeling even of, wanting to be on a vacation as an example. But don't rush out right away and start trying to book a vacation or do whatever. Just sit in that, because suddenly the phone will ring and someone will say, oh my goodness, I have this amazing trip. I can't go on, and I have these tickets. Would you like to go? And it's exactly the experience that, you would have, desired to go and experience. And that's just the way life flows. Like, blessings show up when you're in this state of bliss. It's just, it happens. And people are like, well, you still need to take action on something. I'm like, if that's what you think, then go play, go splash about.
Yep.
You will get exhausted and tired, and chances are suffering will follow somewhere, because the ego is never satisfied. You cannot satisfy the ego, no matter how hard you try. It's impossible. I've known so many people and watched them, grow into being a millionaire, because they think that is what they want. But then they get to be a millionaire, but they see, You know, they start going to some parties where there's people at those parties that are, you know, worth 5 million. You know, and they're like, oh, I want
It's not enough.
what they have, right?
Yeah.
So then they work really hard and they get to that $5 million mark, but then they're hanging out in parties with people that have 10 million. And they're like, oh my God, I want what they have. You know, and it never ends to the point where, yeah, you get these ridiculous ego maniacs that are, you know, out there now and, you know, with way more than what they need, you know. Talk about taking up too much space.
Right.
And not in a healthy way, you know, but every person has the ability just to, you know, when they get there, you know, you become a multi-billionaire, then what?
What's next?
What's next?
Yeah.
And eventually they'll be like, well, I just want to be peaceful. Like, yeah, but you had that at the beginning. If you just were paying attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, people might think that I'm crazy. I go sit in a pyramid, or I go sit by a tree with my back on a tree, and I just sit there and just be in that peaceful state of, you know, but you tap into other energies, you know. The symbiotic relationship between you and a tree is amazing, you know.
Right.
It breathes what you exhaust, and you breathe what it exhausts, and when you sit with it long enough, you actually can tune into that exchange of energy, and it's very real. It's not just an idea or a concept or something that's out of mind. And we can do that with everything in our lives if you can sit in that sense of silence and just listen.
Right.
And not just with your ears, but with other senses, and senses that you don't even know that you have yet, because you're stuck in your mind thinking that you have 5 senses.
Right.
It's not true.
Well, you just explained all that with the, you know, like the waves and the how your body emits this. But you said, okay, so I've had people say if you put a safety, kind of a protection around you, and that would be because of the energies that come from you or that come from other people if you're close to them. Do you believe in any of that kind of thing, or do you still think that it's
a bit of a concept that can take on an energy and take on a belief system that can take up, I mean, you can. They're belief systems. I mean, obviously you do have an energy, right? And they can even measure it now. So they have sophisticated equipment where they can actually measure your auric energy. So it is there for sure. But really what they're talking about is, protecting yourself against other negative energies and all that kind of stuff. But if you're sitting in your true self, you don't have to worry about any of that.
right?
Yeah, there's and again, this energy, they call it in different things, right? That's what enlightenment is. That's that aura around you. Christ consciousness is another way of saying it. The Buddha mind is another way of saying it. It's all referring to the exact same energy.
Right.
Grace field is one that I really like, because it's talking about a field of energy and the essence of grace, because that is kind of like the energy that it's like a gift that you give yourself, right? It's like this whole sin thing you're talking about. It's when you realize that, you know, instead of letting your mind give you the idea that you need to find forgiveness somewhere out there, it creates this lost soul, because the only one that can actually free you and is you. It's like when you forgive yourself and you drop all of what you've been beating yourself up about, let go of that feeling of shame and feelings of whatever, and you win.
Yeah.
If you can, and there's nothing that's unforgivable.
Right.
There's nothing.
No.
Yeah. There's many stories about people that have sinned, and I think one of the greatest gurus or enlightened beings from India many years ago was a man that was a serial killer.
Oh.
Killed piles of people. Somehow reached some state of awareness where he needed to change and became enlightened, and then he ended up helping so many other people free themselves because he freed himself.
Wow.
Because he realized that there really is nothing that is unforgivable in this moment. And that's really what redemption is supposed to be, right? So, you know, that's where I struggle sometimes. You hear people saying, you know, I'm a Christian and I'm this, and yet they're still creating sinful acts. And, you know, and when I say that, I'm talking about, you know, they're doing things to harm themselves or harm others, you know, passing judgment or you know, whatever, right? They're definitely not enlightened.
That's what it was, ignorance. Sin means ignorance.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of what, so it's being taken, Jesus would say, the original sin, the original ignorance, like he was born without sin.
Well,
whereas we were born with sin. Is that how it kind
Again,
of?
those are stories.
Yeah, these are all stories. I know.
Stories, but there's some truth around stories, and so even if you say like, so if I was to say I'm a Christian, that means that I'm following the path of Christ.
Right.
And that's really what Christ said. I am the path, I am the way. And so what he was referring to is notice how I'm behaving. Right?
Yeah.
I love everybody unconditionally. I can pour out my love to everyone because I have the attachment to know that it's flowing through me. I'm just a conduit, and life gives life to life, and I can take this energy and I can, love on you unconditionally to the point where you can be healed as well, because I'm letting you realize that you are also loved.
Right.
Because I am a son of God, but so are you. You are a son or a daughter of God. We are all the same. So when he was saying those words, somehow people were like, oh, he's an actual son of God. Like God gave birth to this, and they just got lost in these stories.
Right.
And that's where they're missing the point. And so anytime I hear somebody say, oh, I'm a Christian, but I'm seeing them judging people, I'm like, you're not a Christian.
Right.
You're not a Christian. You might be a wannabe Christian,
Yeah.
but you're not an actual Christian. For you to be a Christian means that you're actually following the behaviors and characteristics of Christ. And he went to his death, being tortured and suffering all kinds of the most inhumane things possible. And in the end, he's still
full of love and forgiveness.
He's full of love and forgiveness, and asked, his father, whatever, to forgive these people. And then I see these Christians going on, they're judging every little, it's most ridiculously hypocritical, and they hate it when I say it, but I don't care, because it's the truth. And they
well,
can't
and you have your opinion, and everybody does, right? So that and that, but again, when you say all that, it all comes back down to love. It's all about love.
Yeah. Love and grace. Have grace for everybody.
Yeah.
Have grace for yourself. Have grace for others. Sit in that essence of grace, and that's another. It's like the essence of peace, but with almost like a little bit of a, tingling of, something else.
Yeah.
You can sit in that, and I often, I learned from an amazing Icelandic lady that she has this grace invocation. So anytime you're feeling like you need to sink into it, you can just say, you know what, I surrender to grace.
Right.
Surrender to grace. And you can even say to take away any of the negativity. Right? I give it back to the universe. All this pain, all this stuff that I've been holding on to for so long, it came from the universe. So I can give it back. You
can give it back.
Yeah, it came from source. I'm going to give it back to you. And I don't care what you do with it. You can recycle it. You can do whatever. But I just don't want to hold it anymore, because I don't need to and I don't want to. And so you kind of surrender these things, just, and use the words and go to nature and even say the words and just let it go. And, because it's easy to say a lot of this stuff when I'm saying it. But there's a process to it. There's a process to it. It's the mind that gets in the way, because the mind's like very black and white. It's like it's now or never. I can do it or I can't. But that's not the truth. The truth is there's a process to things. There's a flow to things. There's like the seasons. There's an essence to rhythms. And when you tune into those rhythms, it's very beautiful.
And the less you judge yourself for.
Why judge yourself at all?
Right. Those moments of, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong?
We have to make mistakes. You're not going to learn anything new.
I do want to ask you something. We are getting, we'll probably have to wrap up here soon, but you started with, you said you mainly work with people with, you like to help people with addictions and anxiety and all those kinds of.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, there's always a core reason why there's an addiction. There's a core reason why there's an anxiety. There's a core reason why there's a phobia. And people with the strongest minds, actually, in our culture, are the ones that have addictions, phobias, or anxieties, things like that. Because if you focus on something so intently, then it creates an addiction, a phobia, and anxiety. But you have a strong mind. Yeah. You just haven't been using it the right way. Again, because our culture is focused on what's not working, and when we beat ourselves up, and and other people can help, beat us up, and nobody can beat me up better than me, Yeah. So it's just a matter of, getting back on top of the flow of truth within yourself, and letting those things go, and starting to treat yourself a little bit better, and just know everything's good, and let yourself sit in silence. That's the greatest gift anybody can give themselves. Yeah. Because you will awaken, it will happen. You will be surrounded by that grace field. You will reach Christ consciousness or the Buddha mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a gift that only you can give yourself. Nobody else can give you this gift.
Right.
It's the only one you can give yourself. And the beauty of it is when you give it to yourself, nobody else can take it away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you embody it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's yours to hold on to.
It's yours to hold on to. And life will unfold from that point in such a beautiful way. And you won't even have to worry about, you'll still see the peripheral stuff happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, all these burnings are happening and all this, you know, tsunamis and different things, but it'll never touch you.
Right.
It's just like you become the eye of the storm, and
Mm-hmm.
you've just been blessed, but you've blessed yourself. But then the universe goes, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to help you.
Right.
Let's do this. We're in this together.
Yeah.
And here's some stepping stones for you, so you don't have to go and force anything. So
Mm-hmm.
all the people are like, oh, you need to take action. You need to take action. No, sit, wait,
Sit with it.
pay attention, observe. The
Yeah.
universe will go, you know, here's a stepping stone, and so then yes, you take action.
Right.
Because you accept the blessing that came to you, not you chasing something. Because you try and chase happiness, it will run from you. You try and chase love, it'll run from you. You try and chase anything in this life, it'll run from you. But as soon as you stop, sit in this power of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
happiness comes and finds you.
Right.
Love comes and finds you. Bliss comes and finds you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did almost, I got a little emotional there, not gonna lie. I was holding back. It's very powerful, and your presence is very, it's calming, and it's wise. I see
So
wisdom.
I embody the truth. It's
Yeah.
not something I'm just spouting off
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
on high.
and you can see that.
And we're all one, yeah. It's not this. This is why I struggle even coming out and speaking, because it's like I'm like, oh, this ego part is the tough part. I just want
Right.
everybody to be happy and joyful and in peace, and it's right there.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm here to. As part of my purpose is to help people find that within themselves, and hopefully this helps. Hopefully this reaches some people and
Yeah.
makes a difference.
And that's really what, I mentioned to you, my goal is just to reach out to, you never know who it could touch. It could touch one person, and then as you talked about the waves, and Jennifer actually brought that up last week, or a couple weeks ago, the ripple effect, like
Yeah.
how things ripple out, and
Absolutely.
this has been really great. I do want to ask just one last thing.
Sure.
I ask everybody, and you've kind of already told us many times, but what is the one last best thing that you do at the end of the day or right before you go to bed?
Oh, well, that's changed over time, because when I was struggling with things, I would sit with them. So I always make sure that I went to bed, because your rhythms are very important, and one of your rhythms is your circadian rhythm, so your sleep-awake state.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the day, you have ultradian rhythms as well, the fluctuation between one hemisphere of your mind to another. So it's good to be aware of all of these rhythms, which you will when you sit still enough and listen. But the circadian rhythm is really important. So yeah, you want to make sure that you're going to sleep with a healthy state of being.
Right.
So yeah, if there's problems going on in your life, what I like to do, this really help people actually, because you have a powerful part of your mind. You can create with your imagination anything that you want.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that didn't happen and it didn't go your way over the day,
Yeah.
all you do is you visualize and imagine the best possible outcome. And
Okay.
then you feel that. Because if you don't, that's why people stay up at night and their mind's dwelling on something that's negative, because it keeps spinning on the problem and it's not letting it find a solution. So you just give it a solution.
Right.
You can use your creative imagination to do that. So if I had a fight or an argument with my sister, instead of dwelling on, feeling guilty or shameful, what I've said, or resentment and anger for what she said, I just go, what's the best possible outcome with my relation with my sister?
Mm-hmm.
And I just really hold on to that question, and I see a vision in my mind of her happy and me happy, and us hugging and us loving each other, and then my mind accepts that as the solution and it puts it to rest.
Okay.
So it's not going to keep me up all night.
Yeah.
And so I'll bring up the next thing that maybe something at work maybe didn't go my way, but then I visualize, imagine the best possible outcome, and then that goes to rest. And there's a few things that magic that happen in that. First of all, each one of those individual scenarios, I'm finding some closure and letting myself rest in peace.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you do that, the more you're training your mind to be optimistic. So
Right.
even when challenges happen, it's almost like in the moment you automatically see the silver lining.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very cool thing that starts to happen with your brain. You actually start training it to be more optimistic.
Yeah.
By every time you're having a challenge, you ask yourself, what is the best possible outcome I can foresee in the situation?
Mm-hmm.
And letting yourself sit and dwell on that and build that feeling up. Then that overall starts to train your mind just to be more optimistic anyway.
Right. And how exciting is that to be able to imagine just thinking of amazing things?
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
And I actually, something just triggered rest in peace. And you know how we have that, when somebody passes on, you say rest in peace. And it's possible to do
right
while
now,
we're here.
And that is the magic of getting off of what they say, the wheel of samsara, which is really the wheel of reaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so when you can just rest in your own beingness and rest in the peace that is there, it doesn't need to be, you can't create it, it's just there.
Yeah.
It reveals itself when you just sit and pay attention and observe.
Yeah.
And beauty comes from that. A lot of beautiful things come from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a beautiful thing. It's been really wonderful. And Troy, I asked him on Tuesday if he would be comfortable doing the podcast, and he said yes right away. And I just am so grateful that you, you've taken the time, and, everything happens for a reason. And I'm always so excited when I meet new people and hear all these, it just opens up everything more and more and more.
Because you decided to take this role on, and beautiful things will happen. This commitment to yourself to do this and for others, and that's the beauty of it, right? You really step into your power when you're doing something that you love to do and it benefits others. Well, that's magic right there in itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yay.
So thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here. And
how can people get a hold of you if they wanted to? Do you have?
Well, I did have a website, but I shut it down, so I slowed it down. But I mean, you can just email me.
Okay.
And it's Troy Wisdom with a Z, so TroyWizdom@gmail.com.
Okay.
And just reach out.
Okay.
Yeah, Troy Wisdom with a Z, and you'll find me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you hold workshops, or is it just something that comes here and there?
Yeah, I mean, I used to run very specifically, like weekly workshops and seminars, and I'm being called to that again. I really did go inside for the past 4 years, right? So even before the whole COVID thing happened, I was already being drawn inside.
Yeah.
Because I felt a large disturbance happening, and so the universe was calling me in to hold the line. Yeah, it needed some beings to sit in peace, right? So, and there's an energy to that, and there's concepts that are relate, but we can talk about that another time. The whole 144 golden ratio and all that kind of stuff. But so some of us had to sit in peace. We had to hold the fort. So there's a lot of people like, oh, you should be doing this. You should be, everybody wants you to react to what's going on in the world, and no, I just had to sit in peace and hold the line. And but now I'm ready to pull out of the strong feminine I've been sitting in, and allow the masculine to come forward and share a little bit more and help people. And so I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. How that manifests out, again, I'm going to wait for the stepping stones to arrive, just like this did.
Right.
I did not push this. I did not force this. This happened, and here I am.
Yeah.
And this is how life flows for me, and it's how life could flow for everyone if they just stop trying to force life. Just let life come to you.
Yes. And I found that even with finding, I sometimes think it's such a challenge to find somebody who would, but it really hasn't been. It's been so magical in the people that have offered and stepped up and made each week just a wonderful experience. So I appreciate you being a part of that, and you're welcome back anytime. I tell everybody, you're welcome back anytime. If you ever have anything you want to share or talk about,
You ask me back, I'll come back.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Troy.
Thank you.
Carrie. And thank you.
Thank you.
I always end that way. I'm like, how do I end? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Gratitude.
All right. Good night.